Hello everyone. Today we are going to be talking about our chapters 11 and 12 for our lifespan development course. Today for chapter 11 we're going to begin by first talking about the physical and cognitive development associated with issues in young adulthood. So in our previous chapters we've been looking at all our different stages of development across from birth all the way through middle adulthood and into late adulthood or late adolescence, but now we're going to be moving our direction and our attention to trying to understand the issues related to adulthood. Now, when we look at the aspect of what being an adult really is, or the idea of trying to define what an adult is, that now all of a sudden becomes a very complex question. So throughout our chapter readings this week, in chapter 11 especially, we're going to be looking at this particular issue and saying, how is it that we actually define what an adult is or what an adult is not? So whenever it is that you think about individuals and saying to themselves, oh, I'm an adult, but yet they're 13, 14, 15 years old, or even if they're 18 or 19 years old, what is it really that constitutes and looks at the differentiation between someone who is an adult and who is not an adult? If you look at modern transitional periods, we're here now really looking at individuals being between the ages of 18 to 25 is now being an emerging adulthood, but not necessarily defined as being complete adulthood. But yet it would just be that you're now in this transitional period to becoming an adult. So what is it that potentially may make an individual adult? It may be things related to emphasis in responsibility, the aspect of being able to make independent decisions, even looking at financial independence as being a key factor related to now becoming an adult. So there's going to be different markers that are going to be indicative to us if an individual is not going to be considered an adult or not being an adult. So again, looking now at different cultural aspects is also going to be important for us in terms of how it is that we're going to define an adult and what kinds of behaviors those adults should be taking on during this period of time. Because in some instances, individuals are already leaving home by this age of 18 because they're making this transition period to college or to different work settings versus in other cultures where the age of them leaving the home may be somewhere between 14 to 15 years age, like in Latin American countries, and them having to potentially move into becoming or being considered to being adults or younger adults earlier on in their lives because they may be taking on this financial and independent responsibilities that we were talking about in the previous slide. So here again, it's going to be very important to look at the sociological and the social issues, and also looking at the ethnic issues related to adulthood and what specific ethnic individuals may consider to be adulthood, and also the cultural aspects related to an individual becoming an adult. And that's going to move us in now to talking about chapter 12. And with chapter 12 here, now we're looking at the social emotional and the vocational development in young adulthood. And what we're looking at here is really this aspect of the emotional development of the individual. So what is it that potentially may make the person happy, is if you would want to look at it in that particular fashion or in that particular dimension. So here the idea of having a well-adjusted life. So what is it that would make an individual to be well-adjusted? If we look at it from a Freudian perspective or from an Ericksonian perspective, and what is it that makes an individual happy or well-adjusted in these particular types of situations? So as a whole, we're going to really be focusing in on the issues of wellness in its entirety, and the idea of wellness being here this idea of mental health, right? And more specifically, not just physical health, but also the mental health perspective, and making sure that we understand what is it that really encompasses this idea of wellness in terms of relationships, in terms of being a productive individual, and also being a competent individual within the emotional and also within the vocational domains that we're going to be looking at in this chapter. And lastly here, looking at the developmental perspectives is also going to be a key issue that we're going to explore within our chapter readings, making sure that we can try to resolve any type of identity issues that may still be roaming around while we are in young adulthood, and also making sure that we can build up those relationships and have the social networks that are going to be fundamental and critical to our success as an adult. Even in younger stages of development, the idea of having friends is always going to be important, but now as an adult, really forming those social networks and those social bonds is going to be very, very important. And then also looking at that vocational aspect in terms of productivity related to work, and how the cognitive, emotional, and also physical components related to being a productive member of the team is also going to be important in terms of the individual's success during this stage of period of time of early adulthood. All right, that's going to wrap up our discussion related to chapter 11 and to chapter 12. If you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me or call, and I'm always happy to answer any questions.